appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
You bet.
Yeah, I know when we first talked at the start of practice, you said you're going to kind of ease the guys into it, but now that things have ramped up, just what are you seeing out of the team so far?
Well, we're still under NCAA restrictions in terms of how much time we can spend with them on the court, in the weight room, etc. So it's limited that way, but it definitely feels more like basketball season than it had in the summer. We got everybody here now, and there's been a lot of talk in and around college basketball about what the season's going to look like. And at this point, you would think that we're going to play games. That was in question, I think, at one time. And now, later this week, there'll be a statement by the NCAA that will tell us, when the official start date will be for practice and for games. And there's talk of extending the amount of hours we can work with our guys on the floor until official practice starts. So it definitely feels more like basketball season now than it did, when we talked last.
Yeah. You think you guys will be able to start to get the ball rolling more on scheduling once that date comes out? I'd imagine it's kind of been at a standstill since then.
Yeah, most schools that had games remaining decided to wait, just adopt a wait-and-see approach to learn what the NCAA decided on terms of a start date for practice and for games. And there's been so much talk behind the scenes, rumors, etc. And we just decided to sit and wait and see what the official statement is, and then we'll adjust. And there's going to be a lot of teams in a similar position in terms of needing a lot of games. It's just going to be an irregular season. But at the end of the day, we're going to pair up with other schools and put our schedule together, but we'll not be the only school looking for games. Who knows what they're going to come out with? I mean, they could say, hey, you're going to tear up all existing contracts and figure out your schedule from there. There's talk of X amount of games at a minimum to be eligible for the NCAA tournament, a maximum amount of non-conference games with a later start date. So who knows what the statement will be, but we'll know soon, and then we'll adjust.
Yeah, I know the most recent report from John Goodman was that there might be a minimum of 4 out-of-conference games. And ever since that came out, pretty much all my DMs, emails have just been, are they still going to play UNM and UTEP? Is that something you guys are still going to prioritize, scheduling those dates, even if it's only a minimum of like 4 games?
I can't speak for their programs, but I know we certainly would like to for a bunch of reasons. One, the obvious, they're big games for our program, for our fan base. And two, they're drivable. We don't have to get our team on a plane and travel. We can drive to those games, which makes it a lot easier, especially during these COVID times with the cost-cutting measures that are in place, et cetera. So, we've had some correspondence with both of UTEP and UNM about what-if scenarios, and I'm certain that once the NCAA makes their statement here soon, that they'll be the first schools that we'll be in touch with to see where they are feeling. And there's a lot of factors in play. How many games do they have scheduled? How many they need? When the start date is compared to what we have scheduled right now, and maybe those games. There's games that are scheduled early in the season that if we can't start till then, will they want to reschedule them, et cetera. So a lot of factors in play, but certainly from our perspective, we'd like to do what we can to make sure that all those games stay intact for the upcoming season.
Yeah, for sure. I know you guys had a large senior class just graduate. So with those veterans gone, who are some players that have emerged as just vocal leaders in practices so far?
In typical fashion, we've had some seniors step up. Evan Gilliard's been more vocal this year than he has in the past. I guess from last year when he arrived. Johnny McCants, although he's been battling some stomach virus issues and has missed quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. But when he's been here, he's shown some leadership ability. And we've had some younger guys that have been willing to be verbal and to talk. Certainly Jabari Rice, although he's not a senior, he's been around here for quite some time and knows the system in and out. And he's been really good with our younger players in terms of trying to help them with learning the schemes, the sets, the expectations, and what have you. So in typical fashion, we've had a bunch of returnees kind of lead the way and taking that mantle from guys that have left here. And certainly that's always a concern for every coaching staff in America when you lose some strong leadership who will fill the void. And I would say at this point, it's so far so good, but certainly we could grow in that department. And hopefully, these guys will grow into being more leaders for this particular team as the season progresses.
Definitely. Yeah, I know when we talked at the start of last summer, you had said Jabari Rice is someone who made some really big strides that past summer. And sure enough, all WAC first team took on a really big role. Who are some guys you're seeing that have made some big strides this summer?
I don't feel like there's a guy that I could single out that's made leaps and bounds like last year. Certainly some of our guys have gotten better. But at this point, I wouldn't be comfortable or confident to be able to say, hey, this guy is going to have a bigger impact this year than he did last year, or so-and-so has made the step that we need and look for big things from him. Now, I'm not saying that I won't say that in mid-October or late October once we get on the practice court more and see how guys develop and adapt and hopefully new roles, et cetera. But at this point, it's just different this year because normally we'd have so many workouts under our belt with June and July and even the fall. We've had some shutdowns throughout the summer because of positive COVID tests. So we just don't have as many workouts under our belt. So it's too early to tell if anyone's in position to make a jump like we discussed earlier with Jabari. And hopefully that will happen because we certainly need it to happen. It's a different feel this year. Last year we had so many guys back. At this point last year, we were giddy about our team with all the returnees, and that was before the injuries hit us. So at this point, we're looking for guys to step up and to improve in practice and put together a bunch of good practices in a row to make us feel like, hey, this guy's ready to step up into a starring role and increase his productivity. But at this point, I think it's too early to tell.
Yeah, I know with Yvonne now playing pro ball and William McNair being your guys' only returning center, is there a chance we might see some Johnny McCants at that 5 spot and you guys go 5 out?
Well, Johnny's played the 5 his whole career. He's moved around from the 4 and the 5, depending on, who he was playing alongside and with his IQ and now with his understanding of the position and knowing, all the sets, et cetera. It's real easy for him to do that. So we'll continue to move him around at the 4 and the 5, depending on who he's on the floor with. But it's definitely a different look when he's at the 5, especially now since he's expanded his three-point shooting and his range. He didn't do that obviously his first couple of years, but now he's a threat out there, and that really spaces the floor, especially when he's at the 5 position.
Yeah, another guy who's returning is Clayton Henry, who we didn't get to see a whole lot of, just one game last season. You had spoken really highly of him last summer. Just what can people expect out of him this year?
He's such a utility guy. He's one of those 5-tool baseball guys that can do a little bit of everything. He's probably our most complete defender right now. He has the ability to guard 1 through 4. He can switch a bunch of ball screens, etc. He plays in such a good stance, and he has an understanding of it, and he's really improved his lateral quickness. And then the offensive end, he just figured out who he is, and he plays within himself. He knows what his strengths are, so he doesn't make a lot of mistakes like a lot of younger players do. And just as we were excited about him last year at this time, he's getting back to his old form, with both injuries that he sustained, and he just looks really good. And we expect a big year for him. Not saying he'll be, a 20-point scorer or, lead us in scoring or anything like that. But in terms of influencing winning, which is really important to us around here, he can impact the game in so many different ways with his defense, his rebounding, his toughness, his ability to knock it down, understanding the system. I think, he'll be relied on heavily heading into this season.
Yeah, he got his medical hardship waiver approved to return for another year. I know you guys are still waiting on the waivers for Mayan Kerr and Marcus Watson. Just what have you heard in terms of timeline or chances for that?
Yeah, they don't tell us much about that. They work at their own pace, and We just we submit the paperwork, and any questions they have, we submit the answers and scramble around and get all the information that's necessary to ask for a waiver of any sort. But in the end, there's not a lot of correspondence of when they will make a decision. And then once they do, you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, both mine and Marcus, great prospects. I know with Marcus, especially him only being a redshirt freshman, that ceiling is pretty high. Can you just talk about his potential?
Yeah, I would say that's the right word for him. He does have a high ceiling, but like most first-year players, especially freshmen, there's a pretty steep learning curve, and most kids come in with high accolades, high expectations, and get anywhere. But I can just speak for our experiences and get into our program and go, wow, there's other good players, and I've got a lot to learn. And Marcus is trudging through that right now. He's certainly got the body, the athleticism, the size. He's been blessed with all that. And now we're just trying to improve his skill set, improve his understanding of how to compete at this level. But certainly, upside and Marcus Watson go hand in hand, and he's certainly got a high ceiling. And hopefully, he can get there sooner than later.
Yeah, another guy you guys brought in, Donnie Tillman from UNLV, and Utah. I know when we talked, I brought up his problem with tardiness during his last squad, and he mentioned he felt like he was more focused than ever on the game of basketball. Have you been seeing that? I know it's limited practices, but what have you seen just in terms of his engagement?
He's been great. Really neat kid. Love being around him. He's had some sickness issues as well. A lot of schools are dealing with COVID shutdowns, and we've had just a number of sicknesses. Like we've had some strep throat cases. We've had, like I mentioned earlier, some stomach viruses that apparently have ran through campus a little bit, and we've caught that bug, and it's really decimated a few of our guys, and one of them's Donnie, so he's missed quite a few workouts. He's lost a significant amount of weight. So we're working on getting him back in practice and getting his weight back up so he can go full speed. But the times that he was healthy and engaged, it was exciting. He's got all that experience. And I say it all the time. I say it to my team. I say it to reporters that you can't teach experience. And he's been through 3 college basketball seasons at 2 different programs, 2 different levels, and he's been successful at both of them. So he understands what it takes to compete in Division I. And so that part's easy for him. And now he's just got to learn the system, learn the culture, learn the terminology, which he's doing, and stay focused. And he's been really good so far. I think if he can stay focused and he continues to learn and knock on wood, get healthy and get his body back right, that he could eventually have a really big season. And what I love about him on the floor is just his versatility. I mean, he's, again, another multiple position guy. He's kind of like Johnny that way, Clayton that way, where they can move up and down the lineup a little bit, and they not so much offensively, which is great, but for me, defensively, they can guard multiple positions, multiple type of players, and I love that. When you have defensive players out there that can do that. And Donnie's one of those guys. He can get out in the perimeter and get down in the stands and keep the ball in front of him, or he's big and sturdy enough and tough enough that he can defend around the basket as well. And so, he's valuable that way, and I look for him to be a productive player for us once we get into the games.
Yeah, you guys have proven that this one for sure that you're really going to bring in a lot of good transfers. With all these moving pieces, just how do you maintain that same winning culture?
Well, we haven't done it yet. We'll see if we can do it this year. Last year, like I said, we had a bunch of guys back. I got an unbelievable staff, and it sounds like coach speak, but I don't think people on the outside realize how good these guys are and how much time they spend off the floor with our guys, developing relationships, getting to know them better, building that trust. And any coach you talk to will talk about trust, especially when you have a bunch of new players, transfers, etc. If they don't trust you and believe in you, they're not going to lay it on the line for you. And so we try to build those relationships, obviously in the recruiting process, but it's different once they get to campus and you get to know them better and vice versa. And we just really try to spend time with them off the court, get them to know who we are, and eventually try to get to where they trust what we're doing, what we're saying. They believe in the system. They believe in that we have their best interests at heart. And the quicker you can establish that, the quicker that they're going to buy in, and the quicker that your team's going to get better. And certainly from day one, we sell their individual improvement, which is important to us with our individual development that we have got going on in here. And I think there's recent cases since we've been here of guys coming in here and improving their game and having opportunities. And we certainly sell that in recruiting. And then once they're here, we show them, hey, this is how they did it, and now it's your turn. And it's not easy, and that's the thing is we tell them all, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And they've got to jump on board quickly and jump up that bridge and trust, and everything will work out, and that we have their best interest in mind, even though on a daily basis, it may not sound like it. And it may not be 75 and sunny in the practice gym every day, but eventually you're going to see the results. And we're going through that right now. We're going through that right now. And but I like where we're at. We're trending in the right direction as the team this year. And I tell this them all the time too, like just because you got New Mexico State on the front of your jersey doesn't mean we're just going to win. Just because the teams we've had the last 3 years have done that, you've got to do these things that we all went through every year to put yourself in that position. And we're starting to build, those trust relationships so we can get to that point where we can win ball games when they throw the ball up.
Definitely. Well, Coach, I think that's all that I have. Like I said, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me.
Okay, Justin. Appreciate it, man.
All right. You have a good one.
Okay, you too.